if I do everything within myself, I can win. Like, you've just got to have that absolute belief.
There's loads of great stuff in this episode, but listen, before we get going, I would love it if you could subscribe, but as well as that, just hit the notification bell as well, because as soon as there's a new episode or something fresh from all of us, you will get it first. But for now, grab a pen and paper, because I think you might need to make some notes on this episode. It's full of brilliant takeaways. Enjoy. Here we go. Let's welcome to the High Performance Podcast, Dina Asher-Smith. Dina, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. And that intro was that is honestly the best intro I have ever had. I'm completely serious. Like, I was listening to it, like visionary, all these nice things. I was like, oh, I hope I'm not a letdown.
Right. Well, we'll leave it there then. Perfect.
Yeah,
thanks for joining us.
Let's not ruin it. Let's just end
Exactly.
here. Yeah, call it a day.
Right. Well, let's get into it then. Come on. We always start the podcast with the same question, and I never like to brief the guests about this question because I want total honesty from them at this point. What is your definition of high performance?
Oh, good question. My definition of high performance, that's a very good question, I guess, is thinking from a sporting world, sporting context, is just operating at the highest possible level and making sure that everything that you do is engineered and geared to make you, or whatever the team is, whatever the environment is, the most successful vehicle possible. And it's just when everything works in sync. It's more like a machine than like a group of people. And to me, that's probably high performance, and everything's just efficient and everything's there for a reason and it works well and you're successful. So yeah.
Dina, I think for people listening to this, they can understand high performance from a physical perspective. Okay, you were clearly born with incredible natural ability, but then physically you have to hone that ability. You have to work with your coaches. You have to put in the hours in the gym and make sure you stretch so you're supple and you work on your speed. All the things that come from the physical side of being a high performance athlete. What's really fascinating to Damian, myself, and the people listening to this podcast is how you go from being a young girl at school who enjoys running to being mentally a high performance performer. Can you remember the day when you went from this being something you enjoyed and a bit of a hobby to thinking, right, I need to make this my life, and if I'm going to do that, I need to be 100% dedicated to it?
I think for me it was more of a process than a day, but I can definitely remember, I guess, key turning points. And but to become, I guess, high performance and become more of an elite mindset and taking it from, as you said, kind of like a hobby to something that I want to make a career out of, and then going from having a career to wanting to be the best at what you do. It's definitely a process, and something that my coach John, who's known me since I was 8 years old and tiny, I think he's definitely had it in his sights since pretty early, probably when I was about 10, but I did not join the wavelengths till I was about 17. And yeah, I guess the turning point that you're probably referring to is after I had become a global bronze medalist at the World Championships in Moscow in 2013. I was 17 years old, and I had a whirlwind season. I'd done really good personal best times across the 100 and the 200 at the junior level. And I thought that was going to be just like the end of my season, because I was a GB junior. I was looking forward to going on holiday, like typical kind of schoolgirl vibes. Like, I was happy. I got what I wanted to, but I knew there was a World Championships. But at 17, like, you just kind of think, oh yeah, I'm going to watch that at home. And then I got a call to say, oh, do you want to come to the World Champs? And I was like, well, oh my God, I don't have any friends. I don't know anybody. Like, that was my number one concern. But obviously, I went, and I didn't expect to run because I was part of the relay squad and there's 6 girls, but I was put on the first leg and I made the strike 4. And then we came away with a bronze medal from the championships. And after that, the winter after that, I was nominated for BBC's Young Sports Personality of the Year, and I made the top 3. I didn't win, but I made the top 3. And I think that process, and particularly being nominated for BBC Young Sports Personality, that made me sit back and go, hang on a second, if the GB senior team think that you're good enough to be selected at such a young age, and because in that process of getting a medal, I think at that point I became like the youngest world medalist ever, like the World Championships across the world I'd ever seen. And if GB believe in you to this point, you've done this, and the IAAF are like, congratulations, and BBC think that you're good enough to be nominated alongside career sports people for BBC's Young Spotty, maybe you should take it a bit more seriously. So I remembered that day I went and looked at my UCAS form, and I changed my options to stay in London, so I'd stay with my coach. And I remember being like, all my like uni aspirations where I wanted to go, that's gone straight out the window. And I literally remember the physical change in my UCAS form is like, okay, I better make this career work now, because I was working very hard so I'd have the options to go to some of the best unis in the world. And now I'm changing it for this track and field thing, so I better make it work. That was basically what I was telling myself as I was typing my UCAS form. But
wow, what a
yeah.
I love that. And Damian, we talk about this a lot. You know, quite often people will only understand their high performance journey when they see the evidence of what their hard work gives them. And it feels like that is exactly what Dina is saying there, is that she was kind of okay until the day the evidence was in front of her that she is making a difference.
Yeah, that's very much been the theme that we've seen, that confidence is often based on evidence that you're capable of doing something. But then that leads us to that interesting question, then, Dina, of that when you've been going into territories where you don't have the evidence that you can be number one at that stage, how do you find evidence when it isn't necessarily so easy to discover?
You don't. Like, that's what I love about kind of what I do in my job. Like, you don't. Like, you literally don't know. Like, are you going to win the race? Are you going to be successful? Who knows? But as long as you've done the work, you believe in yourself, and you've done everything within your power, that when you stand on the line, you can put your best foot forward. You just have to hope that whatever you have inside you is the best and is good enough, and you work hard so it is. But ultimately, like, it's track and field. Like, there's 7 other women, 7 other teams on the track at the same time as you, and they're just as hungry, they've worked just as hard. And sometimes you don't have the evidence. Like, you can have the predictions, you can have the times on paper, indicative things in training, but ultimately, like I always say, the Olympics, the World Championships, and nothing compares to, I'm incredibly biased, but the moment of a track and field championships, and particularly a track and field sprint championships, all bets are off. Like, it's literally what happens in that 10 seconds. And it depends on so many things. It depends on how you handle it. It depends on what your prep's been like, whether you've been completely honest with yourself, and whether you have left every stone unturned and worked really hard, because ultimately everybody will see every weakness, whether that's physical or mental, when the gun goes and you've got to race. So quite frankly, like, sometimes you don't, but you've just got to work really hard within yourself to that you're in the best position possible, and then you just go and do it. Like, that's it.
So can I ask you a question that we asked Dame Kelly Holmes and Dina, that we asked her to determine that when she was on the home straight of the 800 metres final, how much of her gold medal came down to physical ability versus how much then came down to the mental ability of being able to still run as hard and as fast under pressure. Now, I won't tell you what she told us the proportion was. I'd be interested in how much of it would you attribute to it?
It's interesting. I think it might be slightly different for sprinters and middle distance as well, because you have like a different kind of, I guess, a tiredness or whatever. But I don't know. That's a very good question. I would
think
say
for sprinting it's probably more on the physical side, is it not?
I don't know.
Almost like you've got less time to
psychologically
you've got less time,
but
happening.
Like, if your mind's not in it, you'll mess it up. And like, I love sitting back with my friends and watching track and field, and or even if I'm at a Diamond League, I watch people warm up and they will look fantastic, but I can tell you they're not going to win the race. And they might have it within them. They might be the strongest, the most technically efficient. But if you look at them, you look at their body language, you look at how they're looking at their competitors, and you know that when the gun goes, they're going to get really scared and they're going to tense up and they're not going to run within the best of their ability. So sprinting is very much a mental game. I would say I think it depends on who you are as a person, but I'd say with me, it's probably about 40% mental, 60% physical with me. But that's because I'm quite fortunate that I'm quite confident within myself. But I know that, but that's just me, like, as a person in life anyway. But if, say, I wasn't like that, it could go up to 60% mental, 40% physical. Because at the end of the day, with sprinting, you've got to stand on the line and you've got to believe that you have what it takes to win. And it doesn't mean being arrogant. It doesn't mean kind of putting on a bravado, but it just means that if I do everything within myself, I can win. Like, you've just got to have that absolute belief. Whether it happens or not, that's out the question. And then that comes to the physical, how you handle yourself, how you go through the motions, whether you hit the distinct points in your race. But it is definitely a mental game, because you have to also have the ability in sprinting that when the pressure's on within the race, that you might have not done all the phases correctly, or your competitors might be right next to you when you're expecting them to be 10 meters behind you at some point in the race. You've got to have the self-confidence to not panic, because as soon as you panic in a race, that is done. And it's a beautiful oxymoron in a really weird way, because in sprinting you have to be as relaxed as possible to win, but obviously in a stadium full of 80,000 people, like it's pretty hard. But
so can I ask you, Dina, have you ever been put off by
what did Dame
driver?
Kelly say? We need to know, Damien.
What did she say?
Oh, sorry, I'd left you hanging.
Come on.
So Dame Kelly told us that she felt that it was 20-80, so 20% of it was down to the physical attributes.
Really?
Her point was that, well, she argued that in that final of the 800 metres, she said there was 0.4 seconds that separated the top four finishers.
That's a good point.
So her point was that everybody was as fast and as strong approximately as each other, so it was 80% of it came down to the mentality of being able to hold your nerve.
That's a good point. No, but it is a lot of holding your nerve, I have to say. It is a lot.
So to build on that then, Dina, so some of your rivals are quite elaborate and very overtly confident in the way that they strut around before the races.
We're all different.
I'm not. It's not a criticism
No,
of them.
I'm just acknowledging
have you ever found yourself being intimidated, or has it ever sowed seeds of doubt in you?
Not particularly, no, because I think it's just, I'm going to use a phrase, but it's just believing in your own source, basically. Because, like, you can do all the bravado, you can kind of walk around, people sometimes try and play mind games with you. Like, they used to try that when I was a bit younger, but I think, like, I'm just always on my own little wavelength. No, but I don't mind. Like, I'm on my own little wavelength. I'm on my own little vibe. Like, that's it, really. Like,
but
that's
what mind games
it.
would they play with you? Like, what kind of things would they try to do?
I don't know. Some people, like, we all warm up in lanes on a warm-up track, and some people will warm up, like, in your lane, like, come running at you. But
don't come in my lane.
I'm one of those people that I kind of hold my lane, hold my space. If you want to run in my lane, it's fine. Like, I'll run straight through you. But I don't know, but that's what I mean. I don't mind. If you're going to come into my space, then I'm not going to give it up. But it's just about believing in yourself and also acknowledging that they're wasting energy if they're actively going out of their way to be something that they're not. If naturally bravado is how they run well, then whatever, like, that's their business and you do you. But at times when people are actively trying to distract you, it actually gives me a bit more confidence. Probably shouldn't be saying this. Please, hopefully none of my rivals listen to this podcast. But no, it gives me more confidence, because if you think about it, so you've been working for 4 years for the Olympic Games. You've got 10 seconds or 11 seconds of Olympic final. You've got your last moments to prepare with your coach and your team around you before you get separated. And in those last moments, you need to be doing everything you need to win, right? And if your rivals choose to try and distract you in that moment, that tells you that they see you as the ultimate barrier. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because otherwise,
it's almost flattery, isn't it?
Yeah, because if they were
focusing,
if they believed that they could do it with their own ability without affecting other people, they wouldn't care what you're doing. They literally wouldn't care. They wouldn't care how fast you ran. They wouldn't care whether you were looking good or not. Like, because they'd just be like, I need to focus on me, because as long as I do what I'm going to do, I'm going to win, right? But if they think to win, she needs to be off her A game and I need to affect that, then that's just telling me that I'm in good shape. So, yeah.
Can I ask?
Go on.
Well, I was going to ask, if you don't mind, Jake, that sort of dignity of keeping your own dignity is something that I'm hearing there, and
I think it's a British thing.
Yeah,
No, I'm joking.
but it is. But I'm interested in the role of your parents in this, because when I've seen them being interviewed and when I've seen them in the spotlight, say at the Sports Personality of the Year, that was the phrase that I would use to describe your parents. They had a real
Thank
quiet
you.
dignity about them, and I'm interested
Thanks.
in their influence in shaping the person standing on that
Oh,
start line
bless
of 100
you.
meters.
Thank you very much for that. I'm going to put that in our little group chat. They will be really happy that you said that. So thank you very much. And yeah, my parents, obviously, we're a really, really close, tight-knit family, and they've kind of been the foundation of everything, alongside my coach John, who's known me since I was 8. So outside my parents, it's then probably John as well. But yeah, definitely, I think I'm very fortunate that I come from a very strong foundation, and I'm not trying to say that that's better or whatever than anybody else, but that definitely is an advantage, because I know that if it goes well, fantastic. My parents are super proud. My friends are happy. If it doesn't, then I try again next time. But my parents are still going to love me the same. I've still got the same friends. Nothing goes away. And that just, the bedrock that is kind of like this confidence and faith regardless, it's freeing in a way. It's quite liberating that I don't have to, I don't know how to describe it, but like I've always got my foundation and I know who I am, and like I'm happy with who I am, so I don't have to step outside of my character to kind of achieve something, because I know that my friends and family are going to be cool. And ironically, if I step outside my character, my parents will be like, who on earth was that on the track today? We did not bring up a child like this. But yeah, but thank you for that compliment. I'm going to tell them you said that. They'll be really happy, especially my dad.
Honestly, they just seem incredibly impressive people, and I was interested in the kind of lessons that they passed over to you.
Yeah, they've taught me a lot. They taught me the value of hard work consistently since I was younger, and just to enjoy every day and take every opportunity that comes at you, and be very grateful for every time I get to step on the track, and be very grateful that, in the nicest way, the most stressful thing in my life on a day-to-day basis is getting from A to B very quickly. Like, that's it. Like, it's a good life. I can't complain. I'm going to work very hard to be the best at it, but yeah, if it's not the end of the world.
It's a lovely phrase, actually, that, for keeping what you do in perspective, because there's one way of looking at it, which is appearing on the global stage, running in front of millions of people at home, running in front of tens of thousands of people in the stadium, trying to fulfill the dreams of my teachers and my parents and my friends.
And the nation.
And the nation. Or you can go running from A to B as quick as possible.
Yeah.
It's a great way to describe it.
Well, it is. I mean, I think I've always had the perspective of that I'm an entertainer, and sport is a special type of entertainment, whereas it is our lives, and it is really important, and it is something that we work on day in, day out. It's a lifestyle, so it is a very intense form of entertainment, and we can't lose that. And you have to remember that we are part of a spectacle, and people want to see, ironically, the highs as much as they are invested in the lows as well. So it's just remembering that it's all fun and games in the nicest way. But obviously I'm very serious about it, but it's all fun and games.
we have a phrase in our family, Dina, which I'm kind of sensing, maybe without having the same phrase, you have the same feeling from your family. So this was passed on to me by my parents, and I've got 2 little kids, and we try and do the same thing with them. And the phrase is roots and wings. So you're giving your kid the wings to go and fly and do amazing stuff and conquer the world and have no barriers. At the same time, you've given them roots to know that as you go on that journey, you've always got the roots back here. And if you need to come back here at any time, this is your base. This is where the roots are.
Yeah, that's definitely that. My dad, I've moved out of my house like a few years ago now, and every single week my dad still asks me if I want to move back in. So I definitely feel that I have very, very strong roots. My dad's like, are you sure? Like, are you sure? We do miss you. I'm like, it's okay, Dad, I'm still coming around. But no, but seriously, yeah, definitely that is something that I identify with. And I think in that I am very fortunate. And I think that probably on a psychological basis, it does give me quite a competitive advantage in a way, because yes, I'm hungry. Yes, I want to win. Don't mistake that. But at the same time, I know that, I have a firm, loving foundation. So if I don't, it's not going to ruin my self-esteem, self-confidence. My world isn't going to collapse. I'm just going to try again and try and get better and make a more successful attempt next time.
That's really interesting, Dina, because on our previous series of the podcast, there was a clip that went viral from the footballer Robin Van Persie, and it was some advice that he gave his 14-year-old son. And I think he spoke about, he's presented his son with the choice of being a winner or a loser in life. But I think the bit that a lot of people really connected with was the psychological safety that he presented beforehand of saying, listen, I'll love you regardless of whatever route you go down as a parent. My job is just to love you.
Yeah.
But you have to make the choices of which pathway you want to pursue in terms of making excuses or being or taking that accountability.
Yeah, definitely. I like the idea of accountability and lack of excuses. That is a huge part of my life. I really try and make sure that I'm completely accountable for whatever happens on track, whether it's good or bad. I take responsibility for it, because I think when you're in this position and you have a talent or a gift and you have and that paired with opportunity, so you are fit and you have the races and you are in the shape to potentially go and do good things, then the easy things to control are stuff that you need to hold yourself accountable for. So whether that's working hard, training, eating right, sleeping right, living the right kind of lifestyle. So that means not clubbing 4 days a week or whatever. It just means holding yourself to a very high standard. But yeah, accountability is essential, because sometimes you've been given these gifts, you've been given these opportunities that other people would love to have, and you can't do yourself disservice. You can't do all the people that have invested in you a disservice by simply just not holding yourself accountable and not working hard or not being as dedicated as you should be. So I definitely resonate with the whole theme of accountability. It's a big thing for me.
And where do you stand on the theme of responsibility? Because I'm a firm believer in the 100% responsibility mindset. So everything to do with your athletics and your world that you exist in, and this can apply to anyone not in sport or not in athletics, just listening to the pod, is that if you can say, right, every little element of my life I am going to take 100% responsibility for, rather than looking at coaches to blame or looking at things that happen on the track or the wind direction or little injuries I picked up, right? If you can avoid all of those excuses and just take 100% responsibility, it's a really powerful mindset to get into, I think. I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
I agree. That is something that I definitely... Yeah, that is honestly how I conduct my life, and it's 100% responsibility. I understand that also being able to take 100% responsibility is something that not everybody's always in the position for, because some people, because sometimes to be able to take 100% responsibility, you do have to have the financial freedom, particularly in our sport, to make decisions for yourself. So that means going out and making sure you can eat the best food, you live somewhere where you can have the best lifestyle, that you can afford the best physio treatment and stuff like that. That also comes into it. So I understand that.
But do you not think that even without those things, you can still take 100% responsibility for what you have in your world?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I say 100%. Yeah, definitely. And I think that that ultimately is a big deciding factor on whether somebody is successful, particularly in track and field, or not. Because at the end of the day, it's about not making excuses. I'm one of those people that when people go, oh, it was so windy, I didn't do well, and I'm like, if it was that windy, then you shouldn't have raced. Like, if it was so windy that you had to like have a problem with it, then you shouldn't have raced. If it was that windy, if you decided to race, if you stepped on the track, if you stepped up to the line, then you're telling everybody that I'm ready to go. And yeah, sometimes the time won't be what you want it to be, and there might be genuine reasons for that, but it doesn't mean you have to make an excuse or blame somebody. The fact that you've turned up means that you're ready to present something. And yeah, if you're going to make excuses or you want to blame somebody else, then you shouldn't have been on the line that day. So yeah.
Dina, can we explore the relationship you have with John Blackie, your coach? Because again, these themes that you're talking about are themes that I imagine John has helped embed within you.
Yeah.
Now, because I'm often intrigued at the fact that John has gone through seeing you at 8 years old to now seeing you in these elite finals. And your relationship has obviously had to evolve and develop. Would you just tell us a bit more about it?
Oh, John. Well, I don't even know where to start with John. He is very much like a second dad to me, 100%. That is how I would describe our relationship overall. But he puts it better than me, and he says that we've evolved from, like, I guess, like a parent and child relationship when I was younger, where he would literally tell me what to do and I'd be like, okay, to now I've got a bit older and I understand things, to more of a partnership. So we'll have, very much respectful, equal conversation is what we want to do, how's best to tackle problems, what goals, what aims we want to go for, what we think we have to work on, how we improve something, whether something should be brought into the team, taken out of the team, and what the best method forward is. But yeah, John is honestly, like, I've got there are not enough positive words in the world to describe John. I'm incredibly grateful for all the time that he spent with me and the belief that he's had in me since I was so young, because it takes a special kind of person to have seen somebody at 8 years old and gone, okay, so that one you see doing all the long jump and the hurdles and the throwing, don't let her hurdle, don't let her throw anything. We just want to keep her running, keep her safe, keep her interested, because I see something in that one. Just don't let her get hurt and don't let her get bored of the sport. That's basically what he's been saying since I was 8 years old, and he's just gradually been really patient with both my physical and mental development, adding things in when they needed to be, not pushing me into anything, not kind of pushing me to do stuff that I'm not ready for. And I think the most important thing about my relationship with John is that I, hand on heart, know that he wouldn't let me do anything, or he wouldn't put me in a position that I couldn't handle. And I think that's a big confidence boost as well, because if John says you can do it, that means I can do it. Like, because he's known me for so long, he knows even if I'm not in the mood for something, or I might be a bit upset or whatever, he knows how to pick me up. He knows when to push me, when to step back. And ultimately, if John says we're ready, then we're ready to go.
And from a parenting perspective, because as parents, we often struggle with things like this. You want to push your child as far as you can down a direction that you know they might love, but at the same time, kind of have a realisation that if it's not for them, you do need to accept that and step back. So from the total reverse, really, what has John done from your perspective that we as parents can employ and be like, right, that is how you inspire and push an 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old without making it too much?
It's a good question. I think the most important thing is having fun when they're 9, 10, and 11. Like, honestly, they just need to enjoy it, because there's no point pushing anybody to do anything if they're not enjoying it. Like, they're not going to work hard. They're going to be miserable. They might get results if they're super talented, but they're going to run away from you and never talk to you again when they're done. Like, there are far more important things in life than just being successful and getting results. I know that sounds really weird to say on this podcast, but it's true. Like, even looking at the times that we're in, we can see there are far more important things than just being the best at something, which sounds very ironic coming from me. So
when did he then turn the conversation from, hey, Dina, enjoy the race, to, right, Dina, we need to win this race? When did that?
So he does that now and again. He still does that to me now. I think it's because John is so chilled all the time. He is such a chill guy. Like, even today when we were training, like, normally he knows what to say when with me, which is very, very important. Like, the best, most recent example of that I have is the 2018 European Championships in Berlin. I remember I did my semi-final in the 100 and my start was appalling. I was like a snail. Like, it was awful. It was so embarrassing. If I'm being frank, it was. You can look back, the semi-final start, it was so sluggish. It was like I was asleep. And I was panicking. And normally, if that had been a diamond league, John would have been like, come on, Dina, what was that? Like, come on, we're trying to run a race here. We're not going to the supermarket. Like, ha, 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 you know? And it would have been banter. But I was panicking because obviously, like, that was the focal point of my season. And I understand that the way you set up your semi-final often dictates how the final goes. So I was a bit nervous, like, that wasn't good enough. That's not where I want to be. And I came from the semi to the warm-up track ready to prepare for my final, and I was a bit like, so John, that start wasn't good. He was like, oh yeah, it wasn't the best. And then I said, so what we're going to do, we're going to practice blocks, like we're going to kind of get ready for the next race. He was like, no, just going to go, you're going to go out there next time and do your normal start. And I was like, and then he was like, that's all I want you to do. Just go there, normal start. I don't want to talk about it again. I was like, okay. He's like, we're not doing blocks, we're not doing 3 point. We're just going to warm up, relax, chill. You're going to go out there and do like what you normally do, and we're going to call it a day. I was like, oh. And then I went out there and I had the best start of my career, and I won the massive PB.
Why do you think that was then?
It's because he said the word normal. No, it's
Right.
because he said the word normal. And I know this is a slight tangent of what we were talking about, but I honestly take it down to the word normal, and we've talked about it since. But it's just the fact that he didn't tell me I needed to go and do a good start or I needed to do a better start. He just said, go and do your normal start. And when that's kind of affirming that what you already have within you, what you need to do to win. And it's that idea of the self-confidence. And because sometimes in major finals, people feel like they have to outperform themselves and do the best that they've ever done to win. And don't get me wrong, physically you do, but psychologically for some people, that's not the best way to go into it. So he knows me, and he knew that I just needed to have a bit more confidence in my own ability, really. And just go out there, and it needed to be special and it needed to be good, but you don't need to tell me to do that because I'll panic. So he told me, just go out there, do what you normally do, it's going to be fine, deal with it. And it was. I was like, sweet. But it's stuff like that you get, that psychological insight and that nuance in a coaching relationship is something that you do get after, as your coach has known you for 16 years now. And he's very much seen me develop. He's seen me be, in my early teens, moody 13-year-old to going through uni stress. He's seen me at my best and at my worst. So it's a very close relationship, but it's ultimately it's a very, very valuable tool.
And Damian, from a psychological perspective, that is really an important lesson there, isn't it? Because it would have been very easy for Dina's coach to suddenly be like, right, I need to flood her with information about what a good start is and how you get one, and remind her of all the things she's learned over the life. But instead, he did the absolute opposite. And basically, without saying it, he just said to her, you know how to do it. You've done it before, do it again. That's interesting, Damian.
That to me is a sign of a master coach, of an expert, that they can take all that wisdom and that knowledge and just communicate in the simplest possible terms. As Dina was describing it there, I was reminded of Sebastian Coe talks about his dad was his coach, and in the 1980 Moscow Olympics, when he'd failed so spectacular in his chosen event, and then 2 days later he faced Steve Ovett in the 1500 metres, and his dad had just said to him, stay with Steve Ovett until you can smell his armpits. And again, it seems like a really funny phrase to use, but Seb Coe speaks about that phrase, just smell his armpits until the final 100 metres and then run past him. But it was about taking a complex race strategy and just making it as simple as possible. There's something of inherently genius about John's work to be able to do that.
I'll tell him that too.
Moment.
Be well happy you called him a genius. He won't shut up about that. Yeah.
No, but I think it is the ability to be able to communicate clearly under pressure that he would inevitably have felt is a sign of his own strength as a coach.
Well, yeah, I agree with you, because ultimately when it comes to those big moments and the bigger the stage, sometimes the simpler the cues need to be. If you've got too much flying around your head in arguably what is going to be one of the most important moments of your life, then it's a bit too much, isn't it? Sometimes you just got to go out there and do it and not overthink it. It's easier said than done, but you just got to get on with it. Can't be fussing about.
You mentioned earlier, Dina, about the final conversation before you go out and compete. How does he operate that with you? Is it about technicals, or is it just about making you feel good in those last moments before you go to your blocks?
Normally, the last stuff he said to me in Qatar was that he liked my eyeshadow. So that's why I was laughing a bit, because
but even John, that's quite clever though, isn't it?
Yeah, he's always like, what shade do you have on today? And I'm like, well, it's a purple. I combine this colour and that colour. And I think very much...
Is that him then saying, we've done the work?
Yeah,
like
completely.
We're done. At this point, we are done, Dina.
Yeah. Unless if there's something he needs to say, it will be like one line. It will be of crucial importance, but it'll be one thing he wants me to think about, and that's it. And he won't go over. He won't drill. He won't talk about it too much. He won't drill it into me. He'll just say it. But I know when he says one thing, listen, and then that's it, end of conversation. We'll move on to lighthearted stuff. And I just think it's important because, as I said, to win races, sprinting is it's a beautiful paradox. You have to be the most relaxed when you're running, and there's no point having something overanalyzing in your head that you're trying to force your way down the track. I remember to do it like, I've got to get this done, when ironically the tenser that you are, the faster you'll slow down, and then other people will just come straight past you, and you could have the best the best shape of your life, but if you're too tense and too contracted, you won't win the race. So I think a lot of John's technique is making sure that I'm relaxed, I'm chilled, and ultimately I believe in myself, and that when I go out there, I'm in the right mindset to go and achieve what I need to achieve or what I can achieve. And for him, that's making sure I'm chilled, happy, and laughing. So yeah.
So have you noticed a difference, Dina, now that, like, previously on your journey, you've been chasing after that number one, that gold medal, that that spot. Have you noticed the difference since the World Championships last year?
No. I think it's because I don't know how to put this, but I've never really been much of a chaser, if that makes sense. I don't know how to describe it. I love being the underdog, as in, like, I love outperforming expectations, but I'm always just trying to see where I can go. Like, in a weird way, I've never seen myself as I've never thought I need to beat that person, because the way I see it is like, you've got the best, you've got the titans of sprinting, but they're not infallible. So all you need to actually do is do the best that you can, because you don't know where that's going to land you. Like, that could land you in 8th place. That's not fair. You need to go and work harder. But also, if you focus on yourself, somebody else might be having a bad day. Or the people that's previously number one, she might have a terrible race. But if you were just chasing her, you're more watching what's happening. And if she's behind you, then suddenly you have to flip your switch in the middle of the race and go for it. So for me, I've always just been focusing on myself. And so my targets have always been trying to break different time barriers. And gradually, if you kind of focus on that, you focus on yourself, your technique, your time, how you run the races, as you get better and better, that's going to push you further and further up the podium. Like, that's just how it works. But I never really focus on people. But it's only in the past 3 years that John has really started talking about, like, medals and positions and stuff like that. So when I was younger, it was very much like, let's go for, I want to see this season, I want you to see you execute your race like this. I want you to hopefully go for this time. And it's only in the last 2 years that time targets, have turned into medal targets. So John operates interestingly, psychologically.
Well, I'm interested in, is that helpful given the sport that you compete in also, was that sometimes you must hear rumours of other athletes that maybe are pushing the boundaries of what's legal and what's fair, and that must seem like a coping mechanism to be able to just focus on your race and forget what anybody else is doing.
Speaking between the lines, most definitely. I think that is because, quite frankly, in track and field, I say it kind of guarded at all times, but you never know what people are going to run. You'd never, ever. Yeah. And obviously we want to win, we want to become world champions, we want to become the Olympic champions, but ultimately you can only ever control what you're doing. And you might be running fantastically fast, but you might come third. And obviously we want to win. I don't want to sound defeatist, but you also have to be content with doing everything that you can do. And you have to be content with doing everything that's within your physical capacity that you can do. And whether that, obviously, if that brings you the gold medal, great, that's what you came for, fantastic. But sometimes that brings you the bronze medal, and you're going to be upset because you went out there aiming for gold, but you can't have your self-esteem tied to the gold medal because you can never control what's happening around you. And now you understand the intricacy of whenever I say that on TV, you understand the messaging. But you never know.
So that distinction then between having the outcome of a gold medal or a world title, the world title, versus the performance of just go and give your very best. On those mornings where you know that you're going to get flogged out there and it's going to be physically draining and you're exhausted, what gets you out of bed? on those mornings when you know you're going to suffer if it's not the outcome of a gold medal?
Interestingly, I got this question the other day. I got it in a different way. They asked me, what do you think when you've got to get up? Do you ever not feel like training? And they didn't kind of believe me when I said I never have that feeling, which sounds so pretentious. Like, it sounds so crazy. I'm aware how it sounds. It sounds like I'm a complete liar. But I honestly don't think like that. Like, I think I've just been doing it for so long that the thought of not trying my hardest doesn't cross my mind. Like, I'm not looking forward to the pain, but I only know that there's going to be pain because I know I'm going to try my hardest. Like, I'm always going to go to that place, and I might be rolling my eyes and dragging my feet, but it's not the session itself. It's just that I know I'm going to push myself, and I'm like, oh, great, I'm going to be in the painful place again today. And I don't have any issue getting out of bed on those days because I know it's just part of what I want to be. I always want to be the best version of myself, and I get there through hard work and pushing my body. And that's literally it. Like, that's how I feel. And I know it sounds really weird to a lot of people, and I know loads of people never believe me. They just think she's trying to like cover up and try and pretend that she's perfect all the time. Like, I'm not, definitely. But I think I've just trained my mind over the years, like, pain in what I do, pushing myself, and the pain that I'm going to feel is inevitable. There's no point waking up every morning and thinking, oh God, I'm going to be in pain today, because it's going to be the same tomorrow and the next day and 6 days a week. So if you keep thinking that, you're going to be just groaning and moaning, and you're going to end up praying for retirement, because it's just so like every day's like, oh. But you just got to look at it every day. And when I think about these hard sessions, I always, with John, he makes me understand why we're doing the hard work as well. So sometimes, it's just going to be, as soon as the gun goes, we're running as fast as we can, and it's just to run as fast and just keep pushing that barrier, and it's really horrible and it's not very nice. But sometimes it's horrible because we're working on the end of the 200, or sometimes it's horrible because I'm in the gym and I'm trying to get more powerful. So it also helps to break it down and understand what you're doing, because then you can, when you get to that painful place, you know where you have to push. So if you're working on stamina, when you get to that painful place, it's like, right, I have to make sure that I can maintain this. Or if you're working on speed, it's like, right, okay, but when I get to that painful place, I need to keep my power up because that's what we're working on today. So, I don't really...
So is it about having a clear rationale of why you're doing it?
Yeah.
So it's not suffering for the sake of it. It's suffering for a clear purpose.
That's basically it. Suffering, you're suffering for a purpose, and understanding that, unfortunately, I've chosen an aspiration that comes with a lot of suffering. Like, the rewards can be great, but like, unfortunately, the downside is that I have to be in pain quite often, and that's something that I made peace with when I was like 13. So
Well, there's a lovely quote, isn't there? I think it's an Einstein quote that says, he who can understand the why can endure any what. So it's almost like, as long as you know why you're doing it, you can get through anything.
Yeah, Einstein's a good man. No, I'm joking.
I knew what he was talking about.
I knew he was onto something. But no, that's literally it. Yeah, so I hope that does make sense when I say I never have like that moment when I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered to get, like, I just don't have it, because I've made peace with it, and I know why I'm going to be in pain. I understand it. And definitely the feeling of the adrenaline rush when you're in a packed stadium and the lights go down, everybody's silent before like the 100-meter final. I know it sounds crazy, but there's no better feeling than standing on the line and knowing that you've worked to the absolute maximum capacity, and like whatever will be, you have to control the next 10 seconds within the best of your ability, but you've done everything you can to be on that line. Because on the converse, if you've been injured, there's no worse feeling than standing there in a major final thinking, oh, I've got a gap of quite a lot of training. This is going to be interesting. But so it's just about making it work for you, I guess.
And when you're on the start line, Dina, do you have total belief that the next 10 seconds is going to go well, regardless of injuries and other bits and pieces? Because I'm a big believer in, what's the point in thinking it's not going to go well?
100%. That is something that I've been working on, I guess, as well over the past few years as well, because sometimes I'll get a bit nervous and I'd like, oh, what if I don't do this? What if I don't do that? And the more you think about the what ifs,
it's wasted energy.
You waste the energy, and you make it more likely, because it's like a bit like manifestation. Like, if you believe you're going to do a good start, you have a higher chance of doing a good start.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, I always say, if you believe you will, you might. If you believe
that's
you won't,
basically it.
if you believe you won't, you probably won't. And that's at least give yourself a chance,
exactly.
right?
That's basically
Life
it. Yeah.
kicks us all when we're down anyway. Why would you do it to yourself?
Exactly. Like, there's 7 other people on the line that's trying to see me fail, so I might as well believe in myself.
Yes. Don't make it 8 people against you, right?
Exactly. I'm the one that's got me. I need to at least believe in myself, because I know those other girls won't want you to be doing well. So yeah.
I get a sense that you're so comfortable in the role that you have as a sprinter. Is there any element of this job that is not easy for you? I mean, I wonder whether it's the social media scrutiny, or people assuming if you're having an amazing photo shoot for Vanity Fair, it must have taken your eye off what you're doing. Maybe it's the fact that you wrote a really beautiful article for the Telegraph about Black Lives Matter and the murder of George Floyd in America. Does everything come easy to you, or are there still areas of life that are a kind of daily struggle?
No, everything definitely doesn't come easy to me, 100%. And I think overall, ironically, the most difficult thing for me to get used to has actually been being higher profile and being in the spotlight, because nobody believes me, but especially if you talk to people I went to school with, I'm painfully shy. Like, I really yeah, but I understand that in the job that I'm in, you can't be painfully shy. Like, it doesn't work. And if you're painfully shy, people will project onto you why you're painfully shy, and particularly in sprinting, sometimes it's just useful to be yourself and present yourself rather than let people guess. So I'm shy. When I was at school, I was one of those people. I'm still now very happy sitting at the back of the room and not really saying much. Like, if I'm comfortable, I'll do it, and obviously if I have to speak, I will speak. But I've had to learn how to not be shy.
Why do we see that as not as good as outgoing people? Why is it? I've got a shy son, and I apologise for him. Why do I do that? I know, and I've stopped doing it. But
don't.
Why? Why do I
don't think it's. I think it just depends on the industry you're in, and it depends on also what you want to get out of it as well. Because I'm a firm believer of an athlete. I think the hardest thing for me to deal with, and it's hand in hand with this, is that as an athlete, especially as a female athlete, you have no idea whether you're going to be high profile or not. We don't sign up for the fame. Like, as an athlete, nobody, particularly in track and field, nobody is going and running and pushing themselves and going to their very limits 6 days a week for fame. Like, nobody is doing it for fame. Like, there's other ways to be famous that are far less stressful, far less painful. So people in track and field, we're not doing it for the pain. It's not a money sport. We're not doing it to be rich. We're doing it because we want to be the best. Like, that's literally why we're doing it. So, and because the media can be quite fickle and people can be quite fickle, you just don't know whether they're going to like you, because there's some people that are world champions, but literally nobody cares because people don't, quote unquote, warm to them. And it's the same across many sports. So nobody does it for the fame. And ironically for me, it was actually a surprise when I kind of became high profile, and I really struggled to kind of deal with that. And it's something that I'm still gradually getting better at, like right now. But I just never saw that for myself, if I'm being honest. Like, I always just thought I'd be able to, well, I mean, I do, and I try very hard, but I just thought I'd be able to just get on the train all the time and just mind my own business. Like, get on the bus, mind my own business. Like, why would anybody want to talk to me? Like, I'm do you know what I mean? Like, I've never gone out there to be famous. So I think for me,
so how do you deal with it, Dina?
Chatting to my friends a lot, chatting to my parents, talking to John, taking breaks. But it is definitely something that I'm in the process of. And ironically, I think running and sprinting and being able to present myself through racing really helps, because I do not want to be famous. I've never wanted to be famous. But I also understand that with the position you're in and the opportunities you get, it would be very selfish to turn them down and not also pursue them to the best of your abilities and speak out for people when you get the opportunity. You can't squander things if you're in a position. So that's why I do what I do. But I guess I deal with it by just kind of normalizing it. And I think social media is something that I think it is very difficult for quite a few people that are higher profile, and particularly the ones that might be a bit more naturally shy, or might be a bit more they never expected to kind of be in this position. So the idea that somebody can type a message to them, and because people don't see you as real, which is the thing, like people kind of always see you as through a TV screen, or they just never kind of, they don't see you as an actual person with emotion. So people kind of just say what they want like all the time, which people are free to do, but like doesn't mean that A, there shouldn't be consequences, and B, it doesn't mean that I have to read it. So for me on social media, I'm very much more of somebody that puts stuff out there rather than receives. So I have the accounts, but I don't spend my time scrolling them, like especially over this pandemic with all the news all the time all over Twitter. I've pretty much taken myself off Twitter. Like I'll put stuff out there and I'll post stuff that's important, but I won't scroll my feed. And Instagram, I follow all my friends in track, but I have like most people that I either compete with or they're genuine track friends. I have them all muted, and I have like loads of fashion and dresses and stuff that I like outside of track as well, because I think it's also that escapism and making sure that you maintain the balance. But yeah, as you can see by my body language, that is definitely something that I'm still getting used to. And yeah.
But is that not unusual amongst your peer group, Dina?
It's very normal. Very, very normal. Especially with track and field, especially with us. Like nobody is going out there and sacrificing all your fun clubbing years and training 6 days a week to just become famous. Not many people sign up for it, and there are actually very few of us that are naturally equipped to deal with it. So it does take a lot of talking amongst ourselves, and it helps if you become higher profile at the same time as other people, so you can chat to each other and you go through media together. You might do media in groups and stuff like that. And sometimes I do feel sorry as well for some of my colleagues who might even behind the scenes have stuff like Asperger's and stuff, but they're not comfortable, but then people will mock them for being uncomfortable, and they think they're hiding something because they're uncomfortable, but really they just don't understand they have like Asperger's or something because they're just trying to run, and that is something that it's hard to deal with for a lot of us.
I bet. It's interesting. Going back to the social media thing, I saw a brilliant article the other day, and it was basically saying that we all spend hours and hours thinking, should I eat this food? Is this healthy? Is this carbohydrates at the right time of day? Blah, blah, blah. None of us apply that filter to what we look at on our phones. So we're kind of almost eating junk food for our brains by looking at accounts that are bad for us, watching other people's lives taken through a filter, and you're then comparing other people's filtered lives to your own reality, and of course it doesn't look as good, and then that's really
of course
bad for
you're
your
sitting
health,
on your sofa like, oh, why don't I look like that? And probably the person in the picture doesn't look like that either, like they've been photoshopped. And
correct thank you. I saw this quote that said, it's never been harder to be ourselves because it's never been easier for other people to pass judgment.
I agree. I completely agree. I think there is something called overstimulation, like having too much information, too much stimulus, having your brain. I remember, I don't know who on earth told me, but I think as humans we're determined to take in a certain amount of information every day, and with the constant new social media, new images, the modern day, we're taking on so much information right now that is so far away from naturally what we would normally take in. It's so crazy. So I actively try and limit what I take in. I actively try and control whether it's good or bad, and that also comes into track, because I don't need to be seeing the people that I'm racing what they're doing in training. Like, why do I need to know what the girls that I'm racing is doing in December? Like, I like them, so I'm not going to cause a feud and unfollow them, but I don't need to see it. Like, and especially as December, we don't race in December, we race in August, so I don't need to know what you're doing until like 8-9 months time. So why do I need a constant feed of what they're doing, what their physique's looking like? I don't need that for my own kind of self-belief, self-confidence. We all move at different paces. Track and field we're all unique, and it's a sport where you can 100% be yourself, and people just line you up and see on what day which self is the best. It's about making it work for you, and there's no point comparing because we're all different.
And as someone with a 100% responsibility mindset, what they do has no impact on what you do anyway, right?
Of course,
You do your thing.
yeah, 100%.
Look, final one for people who are listening to this, and it's obviously your whole life is sport and sprinting and athletics, but this is for anyone doing any job in any walk of life. What is your one golden rule to living a high performance life? What's the one sort of final message you'd like people to take away from this podcast?
High performance life. Be happy, be positive, but also be smart. Shortcuts. Okay, this might be a bit of a longer message. Sorry, but don't take shortcuts. Shortcuts aren't there. Shortcuts don't. No, that's a big no from me. Like, though you do things properly, do things smartly or cleverly with. That's not a good word either. But yeah, be smart. No shortcuts, and enjoy the ride. That's what I'd say.
Brilliant. Listen, it has been an absolute pleasure to sit and chat to you. Your zest for life radiates over the laptop. I wish we could have done these in person, but
yeah, sorry,
reasons, it's not
training
possible.
program is back on properly.
I'm just glad the technology exists to allow us to have this conversation.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lovely chat, and yeah, I'm definitely going to tell my parents that you said that they were dignified.
I'm a big fan of them.
Oh, thank you. And John, I don't even know if I'm going to tell John's the genius.
Tell him, go on.
Then it will lose my negotiation points. He'll just say, I'm a genius, I win. I'll be like, oh.
No, seriously, Dina, just to echo what Jake said, I think it's been really inspiring and a real treat just to sit down with you. So thank you for making the time.
That's all right. Thank you for having me, and thank you for thinking of me. And I hope you get that #1 spot on the podcast list in the coming year.
That's what we're all after, isn't it? That's what we're all after.
#1.
Thanks, Dina. Take care.
That's all right. Thank you.
Please hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, give us a thumbs up, leave a review, but somehow get involved with the High Performance Podcast and become part of our growing community. Thanks for being part of the adventure.